They're coming to your neighborhood.
You're not the pizza guy.
Zombies ate my neighbors! Now playing on Sega Genesis and Super NES. They're dead meat. Zombies ate my neighbors! From Konami.
Welcome back, everyone. In this part of the Ultimate Super Nintendo review, we're going to take a look at more run-and guns on the system. As we dive right into it, I did want to let you know this is part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1 where I cover more of the iconic run-and-gun games on the system, I would also recommend you view that as well. That said, let's see what else they had to offer on this system. Based on my previous experience with games based on Sylvester Stallone movies of the early 90s, I was kind of surprised to see Judge Dredd show up as one of the better running guns on the Super Nintendo, at least as ones that were recommended to me. This game was released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo, developed by Probe Software and published by Acclaim. In this game, you will assume the role of the iconic law enforcement officer as they navigate through a dystopian future city, dispensing justice to criminals. The game features side-scrolling action with platforming elements, allowing players to engage in intense combat and use various weapons to take down adversaries. The game's graphics capture the gritty atmosphere of the Judge Dredd universe, including detailed sprites and dark futuristic environments. The gameplay mechanics I found to be a bit repetitive at times, but the game offers a decent challenge, and sometimes a satisfying sense of power as players enforce law enforcement in a dangerous city. I will be forced to limit this to people who are fans of this intellectual property, or hardcore fans of run-and-gun games. I'd give it around a 7 out of 10. Demolition Man is also based on the movie of the same name, and that's a movie I actually have a bit more fondness for, so I was looking forward to playing this game going into it. This game was also published by Acclaim, and even though it came out the same year as the Judge Dredd video game, it was actually a couple of years after the movie came out. This game again offers a mix of platforming, shooting, and puzzle solving as you work your way to navigate through various futuristically designed levels. The graphics are visually appealing and does kind of capture the atmosphere of the movie, and thankfully the gameplay is a bit varied in this game, with a combination of combat sequences, vehicle sections, and interactive environments. However, I found the controls of this game to be clunky, and the difficulty level is inconsistent at best, and it resulted in a lot of frustration on my end. So maybe it's because I'm over to the nostalgia, but I didn't really see the appeal to this one as much, and I give it around a 6 out of 10.
Well?
When I first started researching games to review for the Ultimate Super Nintendo review, Pocky and Rocky was probably one of the biggest games recommended to me overall out of any genre. It appears this game is a bit of a hidden gem because it doesn't appear to have sold well when it first released, but has since gained kind of a cult status. This game can be played single player, but is best played as a co-op adventure, as it follows the adventures of Pocky, a Shinto shrine maiden, and Rocky, a raccoon, as they embark on a quest to save their village from a mysterious evil force. Throughout the game, players must navigate through various levels, battling hordes of enemies and confronting challenging bosses, all while collecting power-ups and utilizing special abilities to overcome obstacles. And I have to tell you, I had a lot of fun with this one. The game really excels in its presentation, with detailed, colorful pixel art that brings the whimsical world to life. The characters of Pocky and Rocky have their own distinct personalities, and their animations are fluid and expressive, especially considering other games on the console. The gameplay is very fast-paced in certain areas and certainly engaging. There are tight controls and satisfying combat mechanics. And because each one have their own unique abilities, having both playing at the same time with a second player really makes this game a lot of fun. The levels of the game are well crafted, with a variety of environments, enemies, and obstacles to keep you interested in each level. Each stage presents its own unique challenges, requiring players to adapt their strategies and utilize power-ups effectively. The boss battles for me are particularly memorable, featuring impressive designs and requiring precise timing and skill to defeat. You may have to attack a boss multiple times to get past him, but it is so worth it and rewarding when you finally do. The game's soundtrack complements the game well and really helps you immerse yourself into the action. While this game can be challenging at times, it is again one of those tough but fair kind of games, and while some may be tempted to give up early on this game, I would say keep going because it's definitely a beatable game. Though this was my first time playing this game for this review, I would definitely give it around a 9 out of 10, as this is one of the higher quality titles I've played on the system, but I'm going to have to hold off on recommending you collect a physical copy for your console because this game can get kind of pricey. Pocky and Rocky 2 continues the adventures of the courageous shrine maiden Pocky and her loyal raccoon companion Rocky. In this game, players will embark on a new quest to save the Nopino goblins from an evil spell, and this game retains the same charming and vibrant visual style as the first game. The gameplay remains fast-paced and responsive with smooth controls that allow for precise attacks. The cooperative mode is once again a particular highlight for me, enabling you to team up with another player and strategize together. In comparison to the first game, this game does expand on the formula with brand new levels and enemies, and there are also some new gameplay mechanics, such as the addition of special moves and the ability to ride on certain characters, which adds a bit of depth and variety. I'd give this one about an 8.5 out of 10, and this one I'm only going to recommend to the completionist type of collectors, because the price on this one is much higher than the first game, at least as of the making of this review. Sunset Riders is an arcade-style run-and-gun video game set in the Wild West. It was developed by Konami and hit the Super Nintendo in June of 1993. In this game, you assume the role of a bounty hunter as you embark on a thrilling adventure to capture notorious outlaws and collect hefty rewards. Again, this game can also be played cooperatively and is a fun way to play it, but I also found some amusement playing this game in single-player mode as well. The game's graphics are visually impressive, providing that cartoony art style that the 16-bit does so well, and helps to create a vibrant and colorful world in 16 bits. Following in the tradition of arcade shooters, this game ramps up the difficulty gradually, starting out kind of easy and then working your way up, providing a fair challenge that keeps players engaged and motivated. The soundtrack is energetic and perfectly complements the Western theme, with catchy tunes that enhance the overall experience and immersion. The game also introduces some humorous elements, if not a little bit cheesy, but it's something that I think makes the game not take itself too seriously and hence adds to my enjoyment of it. Overall, I give this game about a 9.5 out of 10, and this game's value at the time of this review is approaching triple figures here in the US, so it's not one I can recommend to everybody to collect physically.
Marry me with my money.
InGen must be eliminated. I will have control of Jurassic Park. As we speak, my men are on their way.
Go! Go! Go!
Jurassic Park 2: The Chaos Continues was a sequel developed for the Super Nintendo game Jurassic Park. This game hit store shelves in late 1994 and is a run-and-gun platformer. In this game, you take the role of a team of commandos tasked with navigating through various environments infested with dangerous dinosaurs. The game itself is a mix of platforming, shooting, and exploration, with an emphasis for me on the exploration part. Players must carefully traverse treacherous landscapes, avoiding hazards, and engaging in intense battles with dinosaurs. The controls are responsive, allowing for precise movements and satisfying shooting mechanics, but the game's difficulty is challenging, and in certain areas became very tedious, at least for me. Where the game excels, in my opinion, is the game's level designs, because the game features a variety of environments, from dense jungles to sprawling facilities, each with its own unique challenges and hazards, and there's a lot of detail given to making sure each environment is immersive. And while the game does a good job of capturing the Jurassic Park atmosphere, it does suffer from some limitations. There's a repetitive nature of the gameplay, and occasional lack of variety in mission objectives that can make the experience feel somewhat monotonous. The game's soundtrack is a bit more atmospheric than in other games, so there's not really like catchy melodies that'll get in your head, which I think is appropriate for this type of game. But overall, despite these shortcomings, I think that this game is an enjoyable experience, but will most likely be enjoyed by fans of Jurassic Park, and I'd give it around a 7 out of 10. Super Turrican was developed by Factor 5 and published by Secret Corp on the Super Nintendo in 1993, and this game is a very well-regarded action platformer with an emphasis on shooting and exploration. In this game, you control the futuristic warrior Turrican as he battles against hordes of enemies and uncovers secrets across various levels. In terms of gameplay, you'll find yourself using Turrican's multifunctional weapon to provide a wide range of firepower options, allowing you to switch between different modes to adapt to different situations. The power-ups scattered throughout the levels will add depth and excitement to the gameplay, and the soundtrack of this game is outstanding, featuring energetic and memorable tunes that will enhance your overall experience. And as you can see, this game does have an aesthetically pleasing art style that I think holds up well today. For the most part, I've seen other reviewers give this around a score of 8 out of 10, but in my personal experience, this is not a game I could really get into. While everything looks and sounds great in this game, and it looks like the gameplay would be engaging, I don't know, it's just something I couldn't really get into. So with that in mind, I wouldn't personally recommend this to everybody, but it's one that I think could be well regarded if you enjoy the gameplay style. But like I said, there was something I just didn't really enjoy about it, so I don't really come back to this too often. The game did spawn a sequel, Super Turrican 2, and this game is, for lack of a better word for me, almost exactly like Super Turrican, just more of it. The gameplay in this one is a bit more straightforward as opposed to the first game. I found it more similar to something like the Contra series, as well as something like Bionic Commando, especially considering they added a grappling arm, which can be used to swing between platforms and grab power-ups. This game does rank a little bit better in terms of review scores, getting around an 8.5 out of 10, but again was not one that I personally got into as much, but if I had to pick one, this would be the one I would pick to play. Faceball 2000 is a unique first-person shooter game that stands out for its simplicity and addictive gameplay. In this game, players take control of a smiley-faced character known as a bouncer, as they navigate through maze-like environments and engage in frantic battles against various enemy types. This game does feature a multiplayer mode where you can play with another player, has customizable options, challenging gameplay, and it offers a distinct experience for the Super Nintendo. But overall, this is not one I would say you'd want to play by yourself. I think it is best played with a second player. I think back when this game first released, it would have been a lot more impressive had I played it, but it's not one that I would want to sink hours into today. While you're able to move around the mazes quite smoothly, when you fire, it feels like it's very much delayed, and I have a hard time hitting obstacles. I'm assuming after a while I could get used to it, but it's one of those things where I'm like, why would I come back and play this game? I really lack the motivation to actually do a good job in this one. Overall, though, it is well enough designed and doesn't really have too many glitches, and I would say I'd give it around a 7 out of 10, but it's not an essential to play. The Terminator on the Super Nintendo offers an enjoyable action experience for fans of the franchise. The games effectively depict the gritty and dystopian atmosphere of the film, and the controls are responsive and intuitive, allowing for smooth movements and precise shooting as players navigate through side-scrolling levels. In this game, you will play the role of Kyle Reese, who was sent back in time to protect Sarah Connor from the relentless pursuit of the cyborg assassin, the Terminator. Although the gameplay, graphics, and sound are all designed very well, I think I have a problem with the game's high level of difficulty, which can be very unforgiving, and players can find themselves facing overwhelming waves of enemies and challenging bosses a bit unfairly. Overall, I'd go it around a 7 out of 10, saying this one's fairly average. I can pretty much say the same thing about Robocop 3. It offers about the same style of gameplay, it captures the essence of the movie Robocop, but where I have a problem with it is that the game's difficulty is incredibly high, and I think Robocop himself moves incredibly slowly. I'd give this one about a 6 out of 10, ranking it to be a bit more mediocre, but if you're a fan of the game, you might want to give this one a try. It shouldn't be that expensive. Now, when we look at Robocop versus the Terminator, we kind of see one game that was average and another game that I felt was a bit more mediocre, and what do you get in the end? Actually, a fairly decent side-scrolling shoot-'em-up video game. In this game, you once again control Robocop as he battles against an army of Terminators unleashed by Cyberdyne Systems. This game features intense shoot-'em-up action and a mix of platforming and puzzle-solving elements. This game is actually a fantastic crossover game that will delight fans of both franchises. The game's graphics, again, feature detailed character sprites and atmospheric backgrounds that capture the essence of both films. The controls are responsive and intuitive, allowing for fluid movements and satisfying shooting mechanics. And this game offers a kind of a perfect blend of action, platforming, and puzzle-solving elements. You can utilize Robocop's arsenal of weapons and abilities to take down hordes of relentless Terminators, all while also solving environmental puzzles to progress through the game. The level designs are clever and varied, offering a mix of indoor and outdoor environments that are also filled with exciting encounters and challenging boss battles. Overall, I would say this game is a must-play for fans of either Robocop or the Terminator, and I would definitely give this around an 8.5 out of 10, acknowledging its high quality, engaging gameplay, and nostalgic appeal. Super Smash TV is an intense top-down shooter that combines elements of classic arcade action with a game show theme. This game is technically a twin-stick shooter, with the directional pad being one stick and the A, B, X, and Y button acting as your other stick. In this game, you'll navigate through a series of rooms with deadly enemies, power-ups, and massive boss battles. The game's graphics are colorful and vibrant, with detailed character sprites and dynamic environments. The controls are responsive, allowing for precise movements and aiming as players dodge bullets and unleash a barrage of firepower. Thankfully, this game also includes a co-op mode, but I found it to be fun by itself as well. And this is a game I really had a lot of fun with and had a hard time putting down. I will note, though, that even though this does have a lot of adrenaline-pumping action, it does have a few drawbacks. First off, the difficulty level can be punishing. It is based on the arcade game of the same name, and some of that difficulty has transferred over into the home port. Also, after a while, the environments are pretty much the same, and that could lead you to getting burnt out on this game kind of quickly if you're playing it by yourself. But overall, I feel like this game deserves around an 8 out of 10, and I would recommend this over a lot of other games, especially because of its uniqueness of being a twin-stick shooter. Zombies Ate My Neighbors is a quirky and fun action game that puts players in the role of Julie and Zeke, two brave teenagers on a mission to save their neighbors from hordes of invading monsters. This game has a top-down perspective, a humorous horror theme, and a cooperative player mode, in which players must navigate through a variety of levels, rescue survivors, collect power-ups, and defeat an array of enemies. This game really does stand out from the crowd on the Super Nintendo. The game's visuals are colorful and charming with detailed sprites and a diverse range of monster designs. The music and sound effects added the overall atmosphere, creating a more fun and immersive experience. The controls are tight and responsive, allowing for precise movements, and effective shooting as players navigate through maze-like levels. And the top-down perspective really does give this game more of an open-world feel. Overall, I did find the gameplay of this game to be both challenging and addictive. I like the level design, featuring a mix of maze-like level layouts and hidden secrets that encourage you to explore around each environment. After a little while, I did find that the gameplay did get a little tedious and repetitive, but it wasn't something too bad, and I didn't mind coming back to it much later. I would give this game around an 8 out of 10, and I would definitely encourage some of you who are fans of this genre to seek this title out, as it is quite unique and fun on the Super Nintendo. Ghoul Patrol is the follow-up to Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and the game for the most part feels like more of what made Zombies Ate My Neighbors so addictive to me. However, the second time around, I didn't feel that they had the same level of design creativity and variety as they did the first time. These levels feel a lot more repetitive and have less intricate layouts and fewer hidden secrets to discover. The gameplay elements are still solid, it's just not as fun as it was the first time around. I would give this one around a 7 out of 10, recommending Zombies Ate My Neighbors over this one. Mutant Chronicles Doom Troopers is set in a dystopian future where players assume the role of genetically enhanced soldiers fighting a war against an evil corporation and its mutant army. This game is played from a side-scrolling perspective with intense combat and a dark atmospheric setting. This game delivers a solid and intense action experience that fans of the genre will be satisfied with. When you start out, you will choose between two different characters, each with their own unique weapons and abilities, adding replay value and a variety to the game, and you will make your way through a good mix of platforming, shooting, and other strategic elements. The levels are well crafted, featuring multiple paths and secret areas to explore, and this game features the very welcome addition of cooperative multiplayer. Overall, I did have fun with this game and would give it a slightly better than average rating at about 7.5 or 8 out of 10, somewhere in that range. And I would say if you're a fan of run-and-gun action games, or enjoy the atmosphere of dystopian settings, this game is a worthy addition to your Super Nintendo library. Jim Power: The Lost Dimension in 3D was actually made from a French developer, and was published by Electrobrain for the Super Nintendo in 1993. And there's really not much more I'd say about this game that I haven't already said about a dozen other games in the run-and-gun genre, except for the fact that this game is considered by gaming fans to be one of the most difficult games ever made. And also, don't let the name fool you, this game is entirely in 2D, but they use a parallax scrolling effect that I find disorienting throughout the entire game, which I guess gives the game more of a sense of depth. The 3D aspect comes from the fact that it did come with a pair of 3D glasses, which unfortunately I don't have, so I wasn't able to try. I've seen review scores of this game go between around a 6 or a 7 out of 10, and I would say 5 out of 10 may be too much for this one. I didn't really enjoy it. Metal Warriors puts you in control of a powerful mech suit, forcing you to navigate through various levels, engaging in intense battles against enemy mechs, and utilizing different weapons and abilities to emerge victorious in a futuristic war. This game is not one I was as familiar with, but it was recommended as a hidden gem for me to cover in this review, and I have to say I actually ended up enjoying this one quite a bit. The game's graphics are impressive, featuring detailed sprites and dynamic animations, as well as a variety of environments that add depth to the battles. The controls are responsive and intuitive, allowing for precise movements and satisfying combat as you unleash a range of devastating attacks. The game also features a multiplayer mode that allows 2 players to go head-to-head in intense mech battles, adding a lot of replay value and competitive fun. I'm very much tempted to tell people not to overlook this title, as I would give it around an 8 out of 10, but again, this one is very expensive to collect these days, so I would mostly recommend it to hardcore collectors, but definitely give this one a shot if you can. There you have it, that is a look at the run and guns on the Super Nintendo. Did I cover any of your favorites in this video or in part 1? Let me know in the comments below and stay tuned for the next part where we look at yet another genre on the Super Nintendo. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. A special thanks to those Patreons you see on screen. Also, if you like what you see, please remember to leave a like and click that subscribe button on your way out. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.